আজকে আমি তোমাদের ডেমোগ্রাফিক ট্রানজিশন থিওরি এটা নিয়ে ডিসকাস করব। এই থিওরিটা the theory is based on an interpretation of demographic history developed in 1919 by the American demographer Warren Thompson. Thompson observed changes or transitions in birth and death rates in industrialized societies being experienced by Europe, America, and Australia over the previous 200 years. This theory can be abbreviated as DT, demographic transition, refers to the transition from high birth and death rates to low birth and death rates as a country develops from a largely rural, agrarian and illiterate society to a dominantly urban, industrial and literate society. That is, from a pre-industrial to an industrialized economic system. This is typically demonstrated through a demographic transition model. The three-staged model has been identified with pre-industrial, early Western and late Western states. This has also been called as high stationary state, the pre-industrial state, expanding state, early Western, and the low stationary state, that is the late Western state. Now, the stage can be explained in high stationary states with high fertility and high mortality, providing very little natural growth. In the expanding states with high fertility and decline in mortality, providing explosive population increments. And in the low stationary states with fertility and mortality leveling out each other at low level to re-establish a fairly stationary population. This model can be explained. This is the first stage, and in here the birth rate and death rate more or less same. In the second stage, there is a death rate is sharply decreasing, and the birth rate is gradually decreasing. In the third stage, birth rate is sharply decreasing and death rate also decreasing. And this is the total population graph, line graph, and in this stage, again, like the fourth stage, that is the birth and death rate more or less same, but here the birth and death rate is very high, but in this both birth rate and death rate is very low. And next, so the total population is increasing towards the various stages. Most of the developed countries are in stage 4 of the model. The majority of developing countries have reached stage 3. The major exceptions are some poor countries, mainly in sub-Saharan Africa and some Middle Eastern countries, which are poor and affected by government policy or civil strife, notably Pakistan, Palestinian Territories, Yemen and Afghanistan. Now, in each stage can be explained. That is the characteristics of stage 1, pre-industrial society. About 200 to 250 years ago, all the countries of the world were passing through this stage. Death rates and birth rates are high and roughly in balance until the late 18th century, when this balance ended in Western Europe. The fertility is over 35 per thousand and is almost stable. The mortality is ever higher than this, but its behavior cannot be predictable due to frequent occurrence of epidemics and variable food supply. Slow growth rate is seen in this stage, and the population is stationary. Stage 1 does not exist in present time because death rate has reduced even in the most underdeveloped countries. This stage occurs in the agrarian society where the population densities are low or moderate, general productivity is low, life expectancy is low, and the development of non-agricultural sector is at its infancy stage. Masses are generally illiterate, low standard of living, technological know-how completely lacking, primitive means of production, underdeveloped transport system. The majority of deaths are concentrated in the first 5 to 10 years of life. Death rates and the birth rates were both high and fluctuated rapidly according to natural events such as drought and disease to produce a relatively constant and young population. Family planning and contraception were virtually non-existent. Immigration depressed death rates in some special cases. For example, Europe and particularly the western United States during the 19th century. But overall death rates tended to match birth rates, often exceeding 40 per thousand per year. Now, we can look at the characteristics of stage 2, that is the early western. In developing countries, the death rates drop rapidly due to improvements in food supply and sanitation, which increase lifespans and reduce disease. The improvements specific to food supply typically include selective breeding and crop rotation and farming techniques. Other improvements generally include access to technology, basic health care, and education. For example, numerous improvements in public health reduce mortality, especially childhood mortality. Prior to the mid-20th century, these improvements in public health were primarily in the areas of food handling, water supply, sewage, and personal hygiene. Without a corresponding fall in birth rates, this produces an imbalance, and the countries in this stage experience a large increase in population. This stage leads to a fall in death rates and an increase in population. The changes leading to this stage in Europe were initiated in the agricultural revolution of the 18th century and were initially quite slow. In the 20th century, the falls in death rates in the developing countries tended to be substantially faster. The countries in this stage include Yemen, Afghanistan, the Palestinian Territories, Bhutan, and Laos, and much of sub-Saharan Africa, but do not include South Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia, Kenya, and Ghana, which have begun to move into stage 3. First, decline in death rate is due initially to firstly, the improvements in the food supply brought about by higher yields in agricultural practices, and better transportation prevents death due to starvation and lack of water. Agricultural improvements included crop rotation, selective breeding, and seed drill technology. Secondly, significant improvements in public health reduce mortality, particularly in childhood. As there are improvements in water supply, sewerage, food handling, and general personal hygiene, following from growing scientific knowledge of the causes of disease and the improved education and social status of the mothers. Consequence of the decline in mortality. Increasingly rapid rise in population growth, population explosion is occurred in this stage. as the gap between deaths and births grows wider. Note that this growth is not due to an increase in fertility, but to a decline in deaths. During the second half of the 20th century, less developed countries entered stage 2, creating the worldwide population explosion, and that has demographers concerned today. Change in the age structure of the population. In stage 1, the majority of deaths are concentrated in the first 5 and 10 years of life. Therefore, more than anything else, the decline in death rates in stage 2 entails the increasing survival of children and a growing population. Hence, the age structure of the population becomes increasingly youthful. The bottom of the age pyramid widens first, accelerating population growth. The age structure of such a population is illustrated by using an example from the third world today. Now, the characteristic of stage 3, that is the late western stage. Here we can see birth rates fall due to access to contraception, increase in wages, urbanization, a reduction in subsistence agriculture, an increase in the status and education of women, a reduction in the value of children's work, an increase in parental investment in the education of children, and other social changes. Population growth begins to level off. The birth rate decline in developed countries started in the late 19th century in Northern Europe. It is important to note that birth rate decline is caused also by transition in values, not just because of the availability of contraceptives. Stage 3 moves the population towards stability through a decline in the birth rate. In rural areas, continued decline in childhood death means that at some point parents realize they need not require so many children to be born to ensure a comfortable old age. As childhood death continues to fall and incomes increase, parents can become increasingly confident that fewer children will suffice to help in family business and care for them in old age. Valuation of women beyond childbearing and motherhood becomes important. Improvements in contraceptive technology are now a major factor. Fertility decline is caused as much by changes in values about children and sex as by the availability of contraceptives and knowledge of how to use them. The resulting changes in the age structure of the population include a reduction in the youth dependency ratio and eventually population aging. The population structure becomes less triangular and more like an elongated bed. During the period between the decline in youth dependency and rise in old age dependency, there is a demographic window of opportunity that can potentially produce economic growth through an increase in the ratio of working age to dependent population, the demographic dividend. However, unless factors such as those listed above are allowed to work, a society's birth rates may not drop to a low level in due time, which means that the society cannot proceed to stage 4 and is locked in to what is called a demographic trap. Now, stage 4. During stage 4, there are both low birth rates and low death rates. Birth rates may drop to well below replacement level, as has happened in the countries like Germany, Italy, and Japan, leading to a shrinking population, a threat to many industries that rely on population growth. As the large group born during stage 2 ages, it creates an economic burden on the shrinking working population. Death rates may remain consistently low or increase slightly due to increases in lifestyle diseases, due to low exercise levels and high obesity and an aging population in developed countries. By the late 20th century, birth rates and death rates in developed countries leveled off at lower rates. Many countries such as China, Brazil and Thailand have passed through the demographic transition model very quickly due to first social and economic changes. Some countries, particularly African countries, appear to be stalled in the second stage due to stagnant development and effect of AIDS. This occurs where birth and death rates are both low. Therefore, the total population is high and stable. Some theorists consider there are only 4 stages and that the population of a country will remain at this level. The demographic transition model is only a suggestion about the future population levels of a country. It is not a prediction. Countries that are at this stage, total fertility rate of less than 2.5 in 1997 include United States, Canada, Argentina, Australia, New Zealand, all of Europe, Bahamas, Puerto Rico, Trinidad and Tobago, Brazil, Sri Lanka, South Korea, Singapore, Iran, China, Turkey, Thailand and Mauritius. The original demographic transition model has just 4 stages, but additional stages have been proposed, both more fertile and less fertile futures have been claimed as a stage 5. Some countries have sub-replacement fertility, that is below 2.1 children per woman. These should be 2.1 because it replaces the 2 parents and adds population for deaths with the added 0.1 child. European and many East Asian countries now have higher death rates than birth rates. Population aging and population decline may eventually occur, presuming that sustained mass immigration does not occur. In an article in the August 2009 issue of Nature, show that previously negative relationship between national wealth as measured by the Human Development Index and birth rates has become J-shaped. Development promotes fertility decline at low and medium Human Development Index levels, but advanced HDI promotes a rebound in fertility. In many countries with very high levels of development, fertility rates are now approaching 2 children per woman. Although there are exceptions, notably Germany and Japan. In the current century, the past decade as of 2012, most advanced countries have increased fertility. This is completely expected from the viewpoint of evolutionary psychology, with drastic environmental changes causing selection of behavioral traits that increase reproduction. Now, this demographic transition model has effects on age structure. The decline in death rate and birth rate that occurs during the demographic transition leads to a radical transformation on the age structure. When the death rate declines during the second stage of the transition, the result is primarily an increase in the child population. The reason is that when the death rate is high in stage 1, the infant mortality rate is very high, often above 200 deaths per 1000 children born. When the death rate falls and improves, this in general results in a significantly lower infant mortality rate and hence increased child survival. Over the time, As cohorts increased by higher survival rates get older, there will also be an increase in the number of older children, teenagers, and young adults. This implies that there is an increase in the fertile population, which, with constant fertility rates, will lead to an increase in the number of children born. This will further increase the growth of the child population. The second stage of the demographic transition therefore implies a rise in the child dependency. It has to be remembered that the DTM is only a model and cannot necessarily predict the future. I can say it earlier also. It does, however, give an indication of what the future birth and death rates may be for an underdeveloped country together with the total population size. Most particularly, of course, the DTM makes no comment on change in the population due to migration. It is not applicable for high levels of development, as it has been shown that after a HDI of 0.9, the fertility increases again. Non-applicability to less developed countries. DTM has a questionable applicability to less economically developed countries where wealth and information access are limited. For example, the DTM has been validated primarily in Europe, Japan, and North America, where demographic data exists over centuries, whereas high-quality demographic data for most less developed countries did not become widely available until the mid-20th century. DTM does not account for recent phenomena such as AIDS. In these areas, HIV has become the leading source of mortality. Some trends in waterborne bacterial infant mortality are also disturbing in countries like Malawi, Sudan, and Nigeria. For example, progress in the DTM clearly arrested and reversed between 1975 and 2005. The DTM did not include government interventions, that is the population control, as for example, one-child policy of China. Now, the economic development not sufficient cause to affect demographic change. DTM assumes that population changes are induced by industrial changes and increased wealth without taking into account the role of social change in determining birth rates, as for example the education of women. In recent decades, more work has been done on developing the social mechanisms behind it. DTM assumes that the birth rate is independent on the death rate. Nevertheless, demographers maintain that there is no historical evidence for society-wide fertility rates rising significantly after high mortality events. Notably, most historic populations have taken many years to replace lives after events such as the Black Death. Some have claimed that DTM does not explain the early fertility declines in much of Asia in the second half of the 20th century, or the delays in fertility decline in parts of the Middle East. Nevertheless, the demographer John C. Gladwell has suggested that the reason for the rapid decline in fertility in some developing countries compared to Western Europe, the United States of America, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand is mainly due to government programs and a massive investment in education, both by governments and parents. The demographic transition is a change in the human condition. So we can say that is the demographic transition is a change in the human condition from high mortality and high fertility to a low mortality and low fertility. Death is now less capricious and most people live long lives. Women no longer average 6 or 7 births, but in most economically advanced countries, less than 2 insufficient to replenish national populations. Most of this dramatic social change has occurred over the last 150 years. And these are the some statistical data that is in 2011 census, 21.8 births per thousand population in India, and whereas in West Bengal that is the 15.5, and in India death rate is 7.3 deaths per thousand population, and West Bengal in 5.9. Growth rate is 1.1%. Fertility rate 2.35 children born per woman. Life expectancy is 69.7 years. Male life expectancy is 68.4 years and female is 71.2 years. Infant mortality rate 35.4 deaths per thousand live births, and now the density is 382 people per square kilometer. And in 2020, we can compare between these. In 2020, birth rate is 18.2 births per thousand population, and deaths is 7.3 deaths per thousand population. We can see that birth rate is still decreasing, but death rate is almost the same. Growth rate is 1.1, fertility rate is 2.35 children born per female. All of these are the same, but only the birth rates are still decreasing. This is all about the demographic transition model. We can explain. I explained the demographic transition model.